How many games will the Pittsburgh Steelers win in 2024? What's going on, Steelers fans and Steeler Nation? Izzy Manuel Jones here, back with another NFL record prediction. And this time we'll be doing our record prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2024 NFL season. Give you my thoughts, my game analysis, see how many games I think the Steelers are going to win and how many games I think the Steelers will lose. So before I give you my record prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2024 NFL season, don't forget to put a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to my channel for more options. And don't forget to comment down and pin below to see how good you think the Steelers are going to be, how far you think. Do you think they're going to make the playoffs? Do you think they're going to win the AFC North? Or you think they're going to miss out on the playoffs? Just let me know, or you think it's time for a Super Bowl run for Pittsburgh. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. All right, so obviously, the Steelers, got a new quarterback in Russell Wilson, which is kind of surprising. The Steelers, can they at least get over the hump? We're probably gonna see if they can get over the hump and make the playoffs. So week 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers gotta play in Atlanta, play the Falcons in Atlanta, which the game is in Atlanta, which Atlanta's kind of a dome team. 2 new quarterbacks are playing against each other, which Russell Wilson versus Kirk Cousins is gonna be a good matchup. But here's the thing. In my opinion, I think the Steelers, I think the Falcons have a better quarterback, in my opinion. I think Kirk Cousins is better than Russell Wilson. And I have a feeling that, that the game can go either way. Now, lots of people are leaning towards Atlanta because Atlanta's at home in this game. And they're favorite for a reason because it's at home and they have a good quarterback now. I mean, the Falcons did upgrade their quarterback position, but it's kind of going to be a tricky game. I can see Atlanta win this game, but I'm going to lean towards Pittsburgh to win because I think Pittsburgh's just a more complete team. And they have the better coaching staff. And the Falcons going to be doing learning curves because they have a new quarterback, a new head coach. It's going to be a new culture in Atlanta, especially they got new receivers. Their old line's still the same. I don't think the Falcons' defense, is that great. Like, their secondary is totally fine. I mean, I think the Falcons, defense, can definitely give them a challenge. But I think the Steelers can run the ball on the Falcons, given that they don't really have much of a pass rush to get after Russell Wilson, which I think the Russell Wilson can have enough time, which the offensive line can protect them in the passing game. So, yeah. So, I wouldn't rule out Atlanta winning this game, but I think the Steelers are going to win this game on the road. On week 2, they got to play against the Broncos in Denver. Now, Denver is kind of a tricky place to play at, especially in the month of September. Now, I was watching some video prediction, and some people think Denver could beat the Steelers. But this is a Russell Wilson revenge game because he was a Bronco, for 2 years. But you know what? I think that's a game I think Denver can definitely win. But I say Pittsburgh gets a win here on the road because, Pittsburgh's just a more complete team overall. They're more stable at the quarterback position. And the coaches are very familiar, though. So I think the Steelers, I don't think the Broncos are that good of a team. Like, they're going to be one of the worst teams heading into this season. They have their offensive line is kind of okay, but not great. The defense is a little bit up and down, but it's not really as good as the Steelers. I think the Steelers have a better defense. And on top of that, who's going to be playing quarterback for the Broncos? Is it going to be Zach Wilson or is it going to be Bo Nix? If it's Bo Nix, a rookie, I wouldn't trust him, especially against that good of a defense like the Steelers. I think the defensive line can dictate the pace of the Broncos' O-line, which is not good. And, they have a pretty much good secondary that can man up against Courtland Sutton, and especially the Broncos' receiving core is not good. So, yeah, and on top of that, the Steelers, kind of have a better offensive line, in my opinion. I think they can run the ball in the Broncos because I don't think the Broncos really have much of a pass rush to at least, get after Russell Wilson and all that. So, yeah. So I think the Steelers should be able to win this game here on the road. Um, week 3, they got to play against the Chargers. This is the home opener of the Steelers who they got to play with. This game can go either way. I can see the Chargers win this game because the Chargers have a better quarterback, and they got a new coach in Harbaugh. But so yeah, but I think the Steelers are gonna. I think this game's gonna be fun to watch, but it's gonna be close. But I got the Steelers winning this game, and the reason why I got the Steelers winning this game against the Chargers is because I think the Steelers are just a more complete team, and on top of that, they're at home, and I just think they have the better defense, in my opinion. I mean, the Chargers defense, they're not really good against a run, and sometimes they're not good against a pass. So I think Russell Wilson can do enough to throw the ball through the air, especially against a Chargers secondary that cannot stop the pass that well, and they can run the ball on them. Run the ball on them. Uh, I think the Chargers on defense, their run defense is not really good. I mean, they're not good against a run, so I think that can definitely give the Steelers offense a lot of time, to throw the ball to move the football. And I think the Chargers defense will be in a bad position. I think the Steelers can do enough to control the clock, to control the game, keep Herbert off the sidelines. So I think the Steelers find a way to pull this one off as well. And I feel like George Pickens is a difference maker in this game. So yeah. And I think, the defense can do enough to make life difficult on Justin Herbert, give the Chargers offensive issues despite them having a good offensive line. The secondary can do enough to get sticky against an unwelcome receiving core. So yeah, I think the Steelers should win this game easily in a close one. So they're starting on 3-0, looking pretty good. Week 4, they got to play against the Colts. Now, this is a tricky game. The Colts are kind of a physical team. They're like a dome team, but I have a feeling that the Colts, I don't know what Anthony Richardson's health's going to look like. I'm assuming he's going to be healthy. So this game can go either way. Now, some people could be picking the Steelers to win because the Steelers have a better quarterback, and I think the Steelers are kind of a better team than Indy. But I kind of remember, from a couple years ago. I mean, last year, the Colts did beat them by a lot of points. That's with Gardner Minshew. But now this is kind of a different Colts team with Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts are going to win. I think the Steelers are going to drop this game to the Colts. So I'm going to give the Colts the win here to get the Steelers their first loss. I just think the Colts, can do enough to control the game and keep Russ off the sideline. And I think they can control the ball and control time possession in this game. And I think, the Colts have a strong offensive line and a strong defensive line, which I think the Colts O-line can do enough to at least block the Steelers pass rush. They can block okay, which that can give the Colts time enough to run the ball. And I think, their pass rush is probably going to give Russell Wilson a tough time, especially against his young offensive line of the Steelers. So, yeah, I don't think the Steelers will be able to run the ball that well. So I think Anthony Richardson can definitely make some plays here and there. And, a Gus Bradley, when you're playing against a Gab Bradley defense, he does a really good job at blitzing. So I think he's going to find a way to at least, figure out how to defend Russell Wilson. He did a good job last year, defending Kenny Pickett. So I think he can do the same thing here against Russell Wilson. I don't think it's going to be a blowout this time, but I think the Colts find a way to win this game convincingly. Next game, Cowboys versus Steelers. This is a tricky game. This can go either way. Now, when I did every 72, when I predicted all 72 games, I picked the Steelers, but I don't know. This is kind of one of the trickiest games to predict, but I'm gonna leave that alone for right now, and I'm gonna come back to it. Then week 6, they play against the Raiders. Another tricky game here. This can go either way. Now, most people could be picking the Raiders to win because they're at home, and the Steelers can definitely win. Because I kind of remember last year, the Steelers did beat the Raiders in Pittsburgh, which which yeah, they did beat them in Pittsburgh, but I don't know if the Raiders are going to get revenge from last year. I'm just going to leave that alone for right now, and I'm going to come back to that. All right, then next game, week 7, they play against the Jets. Obviously, this is another Sunday night football game, so this is a game that can go either way. Now, some people could be picking the Jets to win because the Jets have a better quarterback, and they're kind of like the most talented team. They're more talented than the Steelers, but you can argue saying the Jets are more talented than the Steelers. But you know what? If this game was in New York, I'm probably gonna take. I can pick the Jets, but given that this game's in Pittsburgh, I'm rolling with the Steelers here because the game is in Pittsburgh. The Steelers have a better coach, and also, I think I kind of feel like this game will get ugly, and I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think the Steelers' defense is going to win them this game. I think they can do enough to stop the Jets' running game, like force Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball in the middle of the field, and force him to throw the ball on the sidelines and all that. I think they can do enough to get pressure on him and all that. And, I think, they kind of have a great secondary that can really man up against Garrett Wilson and all that. So, yeah, I think the Steelers defense will win them this game, but I would not be shocked if the Jets won. So, yeah. Week 8, they got to play against the Giants on a Monday night. Obviously, I got them beating the Giants at home because the Giants are just not a good team. Their offensive line is not good. Their defensive line did improve, but their secondary isn't good. I think Russell Wilson can do enough to cook up a Giants secondary that's not good. George Pickens is a difference maker. Pat Fairmouth could be a difference maker. And I don't think they're going to run the ball on the Giants, but I think the Giants can give them issues on defense. But yeah, and I think the Steelers have a better defense, which I think they can do enough to slow down the Giants' offense. Like the Giants don't have a running game, so maybe they can force Daniel Jones to in some tough situations. So yeah, and I think their secondary can get sticky against an underwhelming receiving core. So yeah, I think the Steelers can win that game for. That's an easy win for Pittsburgh, especially they have the better quarterback, better coaching staff. They're at home. They're the more complete team. So yeah, I think the Steelers win that game. Um, then then you get the bye week. Then after the bye week, they got extra time to prepare and watch film. Because they got a week to prepare, a week to rest. Then they got to play on the road against the Commanders. Obviously, the Steelers sometimes tend to lose some games they shouldn't lose to. Like last year, they lost to the worst team in the league, which is the Cardinals, which I don't think they're going to lose to Washington. So I'm giving Pittsburgh the win here. Pittsburgh's just a better team overall, better quarterback, better coach, just staff, and especially Commanders. They got a new quarterback in Jaden Daniels, which I think he will be starting. But I wouldn't trust a rookie, especially against a good defense like the Steelers. Like Washington's offensive line is not great. I think the Steelers' defensive line can overwhelm that. And despite the Eckler addition, I think they can stop their running game, and I think their secondary can do enough to cover Terry McLaurin and the other weapons they have. And Washington has a really good defensive line, but they don't have a great secondary. Maybe they can give Russ some issues, but I don't think so. I think their secondary is very weak, so George Pickens can be a problem here, and Russell Wilson can make some magic here, which he can, especially he doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. He can take advantage of that. So yeah, I think the Steelers should be able to win this game here. Week 11, they play against the Ravens. Obviously, I got them win the first game against the Ravens because the Ravens. The Steelers tend to play the Ravens really well every year, and the game's in Pittsburgh all of a sudden because I think last year they swept them. So yeah, because I believe it was with the Ravens dropping passes. So yeah, I think the Steelers, win this first game at home. Then I got to play against the Browns on a short week on a Thursday night. This is back to back against the Browns. They got to play the Browns week 12 and week 14. So they have to play the Browns in 2 weeks and almost a week. So I'm gonna say they're gonna split with the Browns like they always do. I'm gonna say they lose the first game against the Browns because the Browns are at home in this game and their defense plays really well at home. So yeah, I think they win that first game, and I'm gonna say they split with the Browns and win the second game because they're at home in this game and their defense should give Watson some issues and all that because I believe last year I believe the Steelers had 2 defensive touchdowns I believe last year I think in like the first game. So yeah, I think the Steelers will split with the Browns. Then they gotta play the Bengals in Cincy. I got them win the first game against the Bengals because the Bengals are at home. They probably want that revenge because last year they swept them, but I don't think it's gonna happen again. Especially the Bengals. I think they're the better team coming into this season. I think they're better than the Steelers. They have a better quarterback than the Steelers. They're at home in this game, so I think the Bengals should be able to win that game. Especially that's when the Steelers really give the Bengals offense issues. But I think, the Bengals defense, have played the Steelers really well, and I think they can give Russ a tough time. So I think the Bengals find a way to win that game. Week 15, they play against the Eagles. So at least the last 4 games of the season, like when you look at it, like they got to play like 3 playoff teams for like the next 3 games, and the Bengals are probably going to be in the playoffs too. So I'm going to say they lose to Philly. Because I think Philly is kind of a better team than the Steelers. They're at home, better quarterback. And especially the Eagles, match up well with the Steelers really good. Like, they have a strong pass rush to get after Russell Wilson, and they can overwhelm that young Steelers offensive line. They have the corners to cover George Pickens and all that. And I feel like their O-line is good enough where they can block the Steelers. So, yeah. I think the Eagles should be able to win that game at home. Then against the Ravens on a Saturday, I think they split the season series. So I think the Ravens win that game because it's in Baltimore. And, Baltimore's a tough place to play at. And Ravens are probably going to want that revenge from last year because the Steelers have swept them, which I don't see them doing again. Especially the Steelers are at home, better quarterback, better coaching staff. I think they're a better team than the Steelers, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's why I got the Ravens beating the Steelers. Then week 17, they got to play the Chiefs on Christmas Day. This is a game that can go either way. Now, I could see the Steelers win this game, though, but I think the only way that I think the Steelers can beat the Chiefs is that if they can at least get Mahomes in a tough time, like if they can force him in some uncomfortable position, like force him to throw the ball in the middle of the field, like give him a tough time. But I think their defense can win that game if they can at least like slow down the Chiefs' offense. And they don't got L'Jarius Sneed, so George Pickens could be a problem for that. But you know what? I know it's in Pittsburgh, but I'm leaning towards the Chiefs because I think Mahomes pretty much owns the Steelers. And I think the Chiefs are just a more complete team. They have the better quarterback, better coach. And I just think their defense finds a way to at least like give Russell Wilson a tough time, like force him to throw the ball in the middle of the field. And their secondary, I mean, they got young players who can play at a high level, which I think they can do a good job, like playing sticky coverage against the against the Steelers' weapons. So, yeah, and I feel like they have a strong offensive line that can control the Steelers' pass rush, which they can, like, block the Steelers. So, yeah, I think Mahomes is going to make some magic in Pittsburgh. So, I think Mahomes, he's going to I feel like the Chiefs might want that revenge come from last year where they lost to the Raiders, on Christmas Day. So, I think the Chiefs will win on Christmas Day as well. Then last game, week 18, they play against the Bengals. I think the Bengals are probably going to rest their starters to lock up that 1 seed. So I'm going to say the Steelers are going to get this win here and split with the Bengals because, they typically play the Bengals tough. So, yeah. All right, So right now, I have the Steelers at 9-6, 9-6-2. So I think the Steelers are probably going to win either the Cowboys or Raiders game. I think they're going to win one and lose one. So the Cowboys are kind of better than the Raiders. So maybe I could pick the Steelers, but I don't know about this. But I don't think I'm going to rule out the Steelers beating the Cowboys because, the Steelers, their pass rush can do a good job, giving Dak a tough time. Like, they can force Dak and Cowboys a tough time. and they can run the ball on them a little bit because the Cowboys' run defense is not great. And then the Raiders. So I'm gonna say that they lose to Dallas, and I'm gonna say they beat the Raiders. The reason why I got the Cowboys beating the Steelers is because I think the Cowboys can match up well with the Steelers really good. I think they can match the Steelers at the line of scrimmage. Like Dallas has a really good pass rush that can get after Russell Wilson. I mean that's a team I think Russell Wilson pretty much owns, but it's a different Cowboys team because I think the Cowboys are a better version than the Steelers. I think they're the more complete team than the Steelers. They kind of have a better quarterback, in my opinion. And I just think Dallas's defense is going to win them this game. I just think their defense is just going to give the Steelers' young offensive line and Russell Wilson a lot of issues where they're probably going to like find. I feel like Mike Zimmer can find a way how to defend Russell Wilson because he did that when I kind of remember when he was a Vikings head coach. He found a way to defend the Steelers' offense. I think he can do that with his defense because I think their pass rush is going to like come to play. I think they're going to find a way to like slow down their running game this time, and I think they got some corners that can really like cover against the Steelers' weapons that they have on offense. But I think the Cowboys' offensive line may not be the same, but I feel like, Dak Prescott can do enough to throw the ball through the air against, your secondary and all that. So, yeah, I think, Dallas finds a way to win that game. Even though it's in Pittsburgh, I think Dallas finds a way to win that game on the road, and I just think they're a better team overall. So, yeah, that's pretty much why I think the Cowboys will beat the Steelers. But I wouldn't rule out the Steelers beat the Cowboys, but in my opinion, I think Dallas is going to go in Pittsburgh and win that game. Then I got the Steelers beating the Raiders is because I think the Steelers are just a better team overall, better quarterback, better coach. And I don't know who the quarterback for the Raiders is going to be, right? It's going to be Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. If it's Aiden O'Connell, I wouldn't trust a young quarterback, especially against that good of a defense like the Steelers. I think the Steelers have a better defense. I feel like their defense can come to play in this game. Like they can give the Raiders offense issue. Like I feel like they can stop their running game, even though the Raiders have a really good running game. Their offensive line is pretty good, but I don't think the Raiders are gonna be able to run the ball on them really well. But they do got some weapons on offense that can definitely give your defense a lot of issues, which Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers. I think the Steelers are gonna. I think the Raiders are gonna have a tough time on offense moving the ball, but I feel like their defense of the Raiders can definitely give the Steelers offense issues because they got Christian Wilkins in the mix along with Max Crosby, which I think their pass rush can give them a lot of fits. But the Raiders secondary is pretty much young, but is not great. I think Russell Wilson, especially when you're playing against a bad secondary like the Raiders, I have a feeling that Russell Wilson, you know, can like take advantage of that because the Raiders don't really have a great secondary though, which George Pickens is probably going to be a problem. So I think Russell Wilson can take advantage of that. So I know the game's in Vegas and it's a tough place to play at, but the Steelers are just an overall better team. So yeah, that's why I think the Steelers will win. Right now, I have the Steelers going 10-7, which that could be good enough to make the playoffs though, but I can definitely see them missing the playoffs with that record. I mean, 3-3 in the division, 7-5 in the conference, 6-2 at home, 4-5 away. I mean, it's pretty good. Like when you look at the Steelers schedule, like it's pretty brutal. Like they gotta play like a lot of playoff teams. Like, it's a tough schedule because they have to play the Falcons, which I think they're gonna be good. They gotta play the Colts, which I think they're gonna be physical. They play the Cowboys. They gotta play the Jets, the Ravens twice, the Browns twice, the Bengals twice, the Eagles, and the Chiefs. I mean, they gotta play like a lot of playoff teams, which this is kind of a hard schedule though, because they gotta play some playoff teams who made the playoffs though. Like, the first like the last, like like the last let's one like the last 5 weeks of the season, like last 5 6 weeks season, they got to play like a lot of playoff teams. Especially they got to play a Bengals team. Even though they didn't make the playoffs, they're probably going to be good this year. So yeah, this is a hard schedule for the Steelers. Like I said it multiple times, I think I got the Steelers still in last in division because I have questions about Russell Wilson. I have questions about him. Like, can Russell Wilson get back to where he was? Like, can he get back to where he was? Can he take the Steelers to the playoffs? Like, that's I have questions about. Will they be competitive with Arthur Smith? Is he an upgrade over Matt Canada? So, I mean, yeah. Will their offensive line improve? I mean, is the defense like that? I have questions about the Steelers' offense, but I believe Russell Wilson can do enough to take this team to the playoffs. And I feel like he's an upgrade over Kenny Pickett. The running game is still really good with Jalen Warren. He kind of was a good running back last year alongside Najee Harris. The receiving core outside of, George Pickens, is kind of not good. They still got Pat Fairmouth. Will Roman Wilson step up to be the number 2 guy? Will Van Jefferson? Who knows? The offensive line is pretty young and it did improve. The defense is still the same. They got some players who are getting older, like Cam Hayward. TJ Watt can still play at a high level. Peyton Wilson, I like coming out of the draft. Patrick Quinn was a good pickup. Secondary is still the same. Joey Porter entered his second year. Mika Fitzpatrick's still there. Like they got a great defense too. Yeah, but I've been saying this. I feel like the AFC North is probably the best division in the NFL, and I feel like Mike Tomlin, he always avoided losing season. So yeah, I feel like Mike Tomlin does get another winning season. So yeah, so 10-7 is my record for the Steelers. I can definitely see them at least winning at least I can see them winning at least 11 or 12 games. I can see that happening. Or I can see them at least like I said, I can see them at least losing to teams like the Falcons, the Chargers. I can see them losing to the Raiders. Um, I can see them losing to the Jets. I can there are some games I can see them losing to, and I can also see them beating teams like the Cowboys, the Colts. Um, I can see them beating the Chiefs as well. Like some games, I can see them winning. Some games, I can see them losing to. But that's my prediction for the Steelers as going 10-7. But I kind of got the Browns above them for a reason. Like I think the Browns are kind of more talented than the Steelers. So yeah. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the Steelers. This is Emmanuel Jones, big fan. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Peace.